and welcome to a very short presentation about how political labels are actually not used correctly. And this is more about how we look at the political labels, because so often we say that one political philosophy is either right or left. And that's not really true, because there is really only freedom, liberty, or tyranny. It doesn't matter what you call a particular type of political government, philosophy, ideology. The key is whether the ideology, philosophy, whatever, is more towards tyranny or is it more towards freedom. And I'm going to go through the 5,000 Year Leap, which is a book that was written 30 years ago and has been updated in a much longer video. But for this time, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of how we should look at political philosophies, and freedom. So, you look at here, we have a spectrum. We go from the right, in the right side over here, where there's no law, 0% law, or total anarchy, to 100% tyranny, where there's total law and no freedom. Somewhere along this spectrum, each of the different political philosophies fall. For example, you have fascism, truly towards the ruler's side. It is on the left, if you want to use right and left, but it is towards tyranny, because in fascism, there is no individuality. The people do not have any say, or extremely limited say. The same with communism, the same with socialism, but socialism to a little lesser extent. And the same with any type of philosophy that says you do it my way or you die, basically, or you're locked up, or you're shut down, or you're oppressed. That's over here towards the ruler's side. Now, over here on anarchy, towards the anarchy, is when there's like the Wild West, or at least the popular conception of the Wild West. And over here on this side, you basically had the strong winning out, which actually, if you think of it, if you get over here to no law, eventually this strongest person or the strongest group will be in charge, and they will put in their ruler's law. So this actually swings around and cuts over here. So if you have nothing, because you can't live in a vacuum, there has to be some order. And if there's no order, then everyone will try to make order. And in that situation, the strongest will be in charge, and you wind up with tyranny. It's the middle, the people's law part, that America tried back in the 1700s and is still trying. That's why it's called the American experiment. We are experimenting with this idea of the people's law. This is not something which is normal to human history. In human history, it's always been the ruler's law and towards tyranny. Might makes right. With people's law, you try to balance the need for order with not having the tyranny that comes from someone just laying the law down. This is where conservatism, populism, and to an extent, classical liberalism comes into play. Although classical liberalism to American ears sounds much more like communism, socialism, and that sort of thing. But classical liberalism from the mid 1800s was very much along the idea of people's law. Now, how do you figure out what the people's law is? With America, we decided to use people's law underneath God. Remember that in the Declaration of Independence, we get our rights from God. The French, on the other hand, they decided to make their laws not from God, and all their freedoms were always they always had a chance, not a chance, but the freedoms were always had a chance to be mitigated by the state, by the good of the state. If you read the 1789, I'm going to get the exact title wrong, but the Rights of Man and State, their Declaration of Independence, basically, and their listing of the different rights. Each of those rights, like the rights speech and the right to get together, these rights were not absolute. They were always contingent upon the needs of the state. Whereas in America, we said that our rights came from God and that government was beholden to the people, to the consent of the governed. And that is the biggest difference. And that's why, as our government has grown bigger, the natural tendency is for the people's law to be pushed aside and the ruler's law to be put in, particularly in a bureaucratic point of view. It's not one ruler, but a group of rulers in the bureaucracy called the deep state. And these people looked to themselves, just much like the French version of people's rights, as saying, we'll decide how much people's rights are. Whereas the American Declaration was very clear. God gave the rights to the people, and the people make the decision about how much they're going to give to the government to protect those rights. And if the government does not do what the government's supposed to do, then the people have every right to get rid of the government, either by voting or other means, just like we did in 1776. Much more to come on this. This is just a quick idea, a quick overview, because we so often hear fascism. Fascism is a right-wing philosophy. Fascism is a right-wing, and if you're conservative, you're really a fascist. That's BS. Fascism, like communism, like socialism, belongs over here. Like American liberalism belongs over here towards ruler's law. Whereas American conservatism, populism, and classical liberalism belongs in the middle towards the right. And that's the best way to look at it, because it's all about the people and not about the government.